welcome to 2020 Design Trends by UXPin. Today we are joined by Adam Ruf. And first of all, I'd like Adam. I'd like you to introduce yourself. Tell us about your field of design, or a little bit about your experience. Just like an introduction, short introduction.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. So my name is Adam Ruf, and I'm currently a product designer at AngelList on the venture team. And I've been a product designer, UX, UI designer for the past 7 or 8 years, working in startups, medium-sized companies, large companies across enterprise and consumer products largely. And so I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time. Okay, so I'd like to discuss a couple of trends with you, and the first would be AI design. What do you think about the whole discussion on AI in design, computational design, or AI-based usability testing, machine learning in UX research? What do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I have many thoughts. Mostly I'm excited and cautiously optimistic about AI and its ability to help me and people in roles like me to get stuff done. So when I think about computational design as far as like UI design and these kind of software products and apps, the kinds of things that I'm working on, I don't see computational design as really having a strong foothold yet in terms of being able to deliver things. I think it's more about AI tools for design. So I think about things like, you mentioned usability testing, right, or research. Just imagine like AI chatbots, the ability to like recruit people, right? That's a fairly time-intensive process, as you might know, right, from recruiting people to participate in this project. And things like that, things that I'm trying to think of other things that AI could power that would be amazing. One thing I would love is the ability to kind of codify or put into code design guidelines or principles. So for example, I'm working with a team where we have our product, kind of our portfolio of products, and we have rules around spacing, around use of colors, around this and that. I think engineers and developers have a lot of built-in tools with their coding that will say like, hey, like you violated a rule or you broke a rule. Whereas in design tools, we don't really have that, right? It's up to other people looking at it and saying like, oh, I think there's something off right here. Or, hey, this doesn't really follow this guideline or this principle. How can we change that, or how can we get alignment? And that's where I see the potential for AI to come in and help with some of those things. Having said that, I don't see a lot of like progress or momentum in building some of those tools. I see more of an opportunity. So I'm excited to see if anyone's going to start doing some of those things in 2020. Maybe it's going to be some of those larger companies, Google, Facebook, some of these companies that have resources and have done things like material design and other things. So I'm going to be watching those big players to see if they're starting to develop any AI-assisted tools to help with some of these.
Thanks. Well, you said something about roles, like different roles, and like maybe opportunities that AI grows for us. And what do you think about jobs in the designer field? Because I'm hearing all over that the UX designer job is disappearing, or this job is disappearing, or that. What do you think? What are the new titles are going to be? What are the new job offers for 2020s?
Got it. So I've seen a shift in things. Number one, I don't think UX design, like the core problem-solving design role, is going away. I think you need it more than ever. Like it's just becoming more and more important, increasingly important, especially to compete with people who are investing in adding those types of roles onto the team. So I definitely don't see it going away. I do see quite a few changes. I'd say the two big kind of shifts that I've seen is and I'll associate it with two titles. One is the UX UI designer, which I'm seeing in the San Francisco Bay Area quite a bit, which tends to be a little bit more focus on designers who do kind of the full stack UX design, from understanding research and doing user research, to bringing in familiar patterns and UI things, all the way to coding. So they may be involved in some of the light front end or working very closely with front end developers. So kind of a designer slash builder role.
Mm-hmm.
The other title that I found is becoming very popular is I currently have the title of product designer. And this is something that I'm seeing more and more, first at larger companies. I'm seeing it. It's designers who have more experience or more skills in terms of product thinking. So almost some of those skills that we associate with product management, or product manager partners, or even like a founder. So someone who's really thinking about the business impacts and not just, the customer or the user experience, but how you can align those with things that are also good for the business. Because when you deliver value for the business, then you have more resources, you can deliver even more value for customers, and so on. It's kind of virtuous cycle. So those are the two titles, UX/UI designer and product designer, are the things I think we'll continue to see going into 2020.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know for a fact that you are a huge advocate for empathy in design. And since you mentioned that you don't see UX UI designer job to be disappearing, what would you, because you touched a bit the topic of the skills that are needed in the UX design or design in general. What do you think about, what will be the clue to get hired in design industry in 2020?
That's interesting. I don't think it changes so much. I think having a very clear story that aligns with a company's mission, a company or organization, wherever you're trying to get hired, I think this is where some of the product design element comes in. Like, even if you're not going to be a product designer, thinking like a product designer, at least for interviewing, makes a lot of sense. Really understanding, what does this business need? What are they trying to accomplish by hiring this particular role? And how can I align the story of my experiences and my accomplishments and achievements to demonstrate that, hey, the things that I've been, the things that I've seen, the things that I've learned, I can apply those directly to helping customers and helping the business in this particular role. So if anything, I would say it's that storytelling and that thoughtfulness of connecting your story of what you can provide with the story that the business is telling about what they need.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah, totally. Gotcha. Do you think, because you said that the design work is, as if I understand it correctly, is all about the business needs, but at the end of the day, business needs are user needs, right? So I can see more and more demand for device-dependent designing. What do you think about that? Do you think it will be one of the top trends for 2020 as well?
By device-dependent, do you mean like a specific and separate design, for example, for a mobile app versus something else? I think it probably depends. Again, going back to like the customers and who are the audience. I guess if you ask 10 designers in 10 different industries, they're probably going to give you 10 slightly different answers to this question. So let me take a stab at it from where I'm sitting and kind of thinking about the enterprise and consumer, like web app space. For me and for us, responsive and adaptive design, this is still seems like a very good strategy. Like, we don't have any, as far as I'm aware of, there's no immediate terms of thinking like, oh, like, do we need a native app for this experience? We're really trying to push on responsive design and just being very thoughtful with that to make sure that we're delivering a good experience for people who are often switching between devices, right? So we see sometimes people are on their smartphone, sometimes people are on a computer. That's kind of our user scenario. I could imagine in other situations where maybe, let's say 90% of users 90% of the time are on a phone or some other device, then there may be a stronger need or desire to invest resources in saying, okay, is there something special that we can do? We know that this is, the context for the experience. How do we really push this experience?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, I believe that like focusing on each user's specific needs comes with this topic comes the topic of accessibility, because
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's, in my opinion, that's a very important trend,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be very, very big trend. And I can't believe that it's going, it's a trend actually, because it should be like all the time, right?
Yes. Totally preaching to the choir here. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there is still a big challenge with accessibility. I'm seeing it more and more, like on my current team, where we're using tools like React and different frameworks that are kind of shadow DOM, that don't actually directly manipulate the DOM. It's very easy to do things that don't apply to web standards. So I'm finding that one of the things that's important for me and my team is to really help our engineering partners like understand why accessibility is important. And that's usually pretty easy. Like at the end of the day, like we really care about our users. It's very easy to say like, hey, this is why it's important. We're also starting to see in the past couple of years, like more lawsuits and things coming out. So the business also is starting to get more sensitive about making sure that we're, meeting legal requirements in terms of accessibility and giving that experience to everyone. So I think in this year, it's really going to be a couple things. It's going to be making sure that as designers, we're really championing
Mm-hmm.
and helping to educate people about the importance of accessibility and how we make it happen. And also making sure we have buy-in from the people who are really, prioritizing things, because, it can be very easy from a business perspective of saying like, okay, what is the benefit of like doing this if we have to do some extra work because we didn't start with accessibility and standards, like we have to do some extra work to get there. How do we make that decision to invest in that versus something else? So yeah, I think getting there, I'm hoping to see in 2020 more examples from teams who are using kind of modern or cutting edge technology in terms of their tech stack, especially for web apps and things, so that it's very easy for someone to grab a library or borrow this and have that accessibility that comes with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's becoming more and more easy, right? Because for sure, some designers should, like learn it. What's, like the accessibility standards, but as you said, it's going to be so much easier in 2020 because of the resources that we have, right?
I hope so. Yeah, I think it's still important to make sure that those are requirements. Like I think that's the thing is maybe my wish for 2020 is that accessibility kind of bridges the gap from like, yes, everyone agrees it's important and sometimes we invest in it, to accessibility is a hard requirement. Like we don't release anything until we've delivered, an accessible feature or functionality.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be an extra, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of accessibility, I think, well, especially in UI design, I think minimalism is something that most designers pursue, because at the end of the day, you want the app your design to be understandable and to be usable, right? Not to be beautiful exactly. But there is a really strong trend of like maximalism, Do you think it has its place in web design or product design as well, or only in like interior design or fashion?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, from the web and web products and web experiences, I would say it's a little bit of both, or maybe something different, maybe more like essentialism, right? I think that's kind of the goal in product design. I know that's something that um, it maybe not a term or a word that we're using around the team, but our behaviors kind of demonstrate essentialism. We're asking questions, what's absolutely critical for this experience to work? Is there anything unnecessary? So we're always looking for like things to potentially remove, right? And simplify things, which seems to like tend towards minimalism. But we're also asking like, what's essential? If we need to create a video or a PDF, like illustrated story, if that's going to be the best way to communicate some information, then doing that is cool too. Everything doesn't have to be white background, grayscale text, right? So I think that's the key thing, is really figuring out what's essential. And in my experience, that's kind of what all designers, at least in the UI space, we're working towards, building apps and things. That's what we want to do. We want to figure out like what's essential, what's the minimal set of things, but also in the right way. So the content types could be more elaborate, depending on what's really going to make that experience the best it can be.
Yeah, sure. Gotcha. That's very insightful. Thank you. So I'd like to ask you just two more questions. And one
Okay.
would be, what is your absolute favorite emerging trend in your field, which is product design?
I love no code. I love the no code movement.
Okay.
No code tools. So it's funny, right? All these tools are like built with code, but they empower people who maybe they're intimidated by code, or just like don't feel like they have the time or the energy to like be investing in learning code and some of these skills. The fact that there are increasing number of tools that allow people to make and design products and experiences and useful tools, I think is super exciting, because I think it helps kind of democratize design, and it puts, it creates more opportunities for designers, because a lot of these people are, doing it without any sort of design background, which is perfectly fine, right? And we have a lot that we can share with people now, even more people that we can potentially share with, and kind of help bring along the journey of, cool, now you can build things that are useful. How do you optimize the experience? How do you take your useful functional idea and make it, even better? So I'm really excited by the no code movement.
I'm so happy that you say that, because that's exactly what we're advocating and at UXPin for. It's amazing. Yeah, that's good for us. And my last question for you is, what are your professional goals for 2020? Are they, like aligned with the trends, or do you have like some New Year's resolutions that are completely universal and evergreen?
Yeah, a little bit of evergreen. Like, I think the like growth mindset, that's something that's fairly common around on the team, and just looking at improving. Like, we have, team goals that we have for this year, and different metrics and goals that we want to hit and targets. So I think for me and the design team, it's really about just increasing our impact. How do we increase the positive impact we're having? How do we communicate that even more effectively? So, if you ask anyone in the company, they can like at least point to something. Oh yeah, the design team really made a big difference when they did X. And really tying those things to behaviors, because essentially what we're doing, the design team was only kind of fully formed about a year ago, when the third designer joined. We assembled a design team of 3 in about 3 months, from zero. So we're still learning, and we're still kind of writing our own design playbook. So that's going to be the big thing for this year.
So fingers crossed for you.
I think we've got great people on the design team. I'm really fortunate to work with some really great people, and it's just a matter of being thoughtful and applying the effort in the right places. I think we're going to be really successful.
Yeah, I just hope this trend or this mindset never goes out of style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Adam, for your thoughts, for your answers, and let's just stay connected.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you.